Okay, what I'd like to do is tell you an Irish in the beginning story, a creation myth. And in a way, Ireland doesn't have a creation myth like so many other mythologies, like the Greeks or the Babylonians or the Norse. But what it does is it has a body of stories that are contained within a book called Lao Gawala, the Book of Invasions. And the first story is of a woman called Sessa. And her journey begins, why these stories are so important is what they spell out for a culture is how to deal with chaos and how the world moves from chaos to order. And why they are so significant is they tend to be a kind of cultural operating system, and that at times later on in the culture, when they're experiencing another time of disorder or chaos, there's a tendency to go back to their creation myths. And from that point of view, I'd like to suggest that what we have in here in these early Irish stories is a sort of operating system of the Irish, their creation myth. And it does begin with Sessa, whose journey starts in Merrow. Look it up in the dictionary. I'd never heard of it. And it actually is in northern Sudan, which probably means she should have a different skin color. But then she heads up to Egypt and then through the Assyrian and Babylonian, and in many ways would have experienced all those cultures and mythologies. But then she comes down to what was Hebrew culture. And the story goes that her grandfather, who was Noah, would not let her on the ark. Now, if granddad won't let you on the ark, you've two problems. One is you've been thrown out of the family, and second, you're likely to drown, because everyone knows that a vengeful God was going to create a flood that was going to be a wiping out of the sinful humanity. So Sessa's there, thrown out of family, likely to die in a flood. And I think this is a hugely significant moment, because rather than feel sorry for herself and be a victim, and rather than supplicate herself to Noah and say, please let me in, what she does is she gets her colleagues together, who Noah has described as a bunch of thieves, and she builds 3 arks, and she says, well, I'm going to start again. And she carries on with her journey, and that journey ends up in Ireland, where her intent is to start again. So it's an extraordinary story of a formidable woman taking agency and basically saying, well, Noah, if you won't let me on the ark, I'm going to do my own thing with my own people and start again. And for many, that's an inspiring story. From a women's point of view, it's an inspiring story. But anyway, what then happens is that we move on to her arriving with 50 women and 3 men, the mothers of the world. And what happens is the men can't actually hack it, which tells you one other thing, which is gender balance seems to be important. And apart from Fintan MacBogna, her lover, they're all wiped out. And Fintan, through shape-shifting, which is another extraordinary Irish skill, manages to survive, and as the myths go, lives for 5,500 years, which establishes another great wisdom of the Irish, which is longevity. But then what we learn is there are other invasions. The Partholonians come, create the 3 great industries in Ireland, agriculture, tourism, and brewing, that are still the mainstays of Irish industries today, many generations later. But they're wiped out in a plague. 5,000 men die, 4,000 women, and they're buried in Tala, which is not far from where we are in South Dublin. Tamlacht means the place of the plague. Then the Nemedians come and they experienced oppression when they spend their time building infrastructure, and they scatter to the four winds because they can't handle the oppressive taxation and the cruelty of the rulers at the time. And one crowd go to Greece and become the Firbolg. The Fir means men in Irish and Bolg means bags. So they're the bag carriers. They're the humblest of the humble. Now they arrive back in Ireland. Now, one of the things, if you've experienced oppression, you probably have a very clear view on power and its abuse. So the foundation organizational structure that's laid out by the Firbolg is of, and I'll just get this up in a minute, is of a distributed power system. And what they had is an inherent suspicion of hierarchy and any sort of centralized control. So their term in Irish for province is cuaige, which means 5 in Irish. Why cuaige when you have Munster, Leinster, Connaught and Ulster? And the answer to that is they have a belief in distributed power, but they also have the sacred center, which is a place of feasting, it's of storytelling, it's of law, but it's a restorative justice form of a legal system. That's the Brehon laws, and it has a style of leadership that the more power you have, the more gases or controls or taboos there are. So what's beginning to emerge is that these not chosen people, because Cessa is not chosen, and the Nemedians are not chosen, the Firbolg are not chosen, are very familiar at dealing with crisis, pain, rejection, oppression, and all manner of natural hardship. And so their system of organization is distributed power, a focus on the local, a focus on community. They don't think vertically and believe in strong men. They think horizontally and believe in the community. The image for the 5th province is amazingly the kidney. How they knew what the kidney did 3,000 years ago, I do not know, but if you look it up, you'll learn it's a symbol of balance and not of control, not of power, but of balance. So the role of the sacred center is balance. So what we've got here is the people from somewhere else. The Irish are the people from somewhere else who go somewhere else, and that's carried on right through their history. And we're going to learn a bit more about it in a little while, of emigration and immigration and emigration and immigration. And so hospitality is important, but also a distributed power organizational system that's about meeting as equals. And clearly, when they have experienced floods and plagues, they do not believe, like Genesis, that man has dominion over nature. They realize that nature can be cruel, and floods and plagues can wipe them all out. So there's a total respect and reverence for nature. And we have here a body of a worldview, really, a body of wisdom encoded within stories that I'd like to suggest is the operating system of the Irish, of the ancient Irish. And these stories carried on, as we saw in our series, the story of the story, they carried on, they survived Christianity, who would have described them as pagan stories. They survived the Vikings. They even survived the Normans, who ended up being more Irish than the Irish. And they were carried on in the bardic oral tradition really for 1,500 years. There was a huge respect for this body of stories. But what we're going to hear now from Tom is a story of the famine. And he has a longer version, which we're going to send to you because we're a bit tight for time. We'll send you a longer version. And by the way, we'll be sending you a lot of stuff. What we hope is you don't feel, oh my God, I haven't read it, I can't come to the next. Please don't feel that. But we do want to share material, share videos, so that you can catch up. And if you're new, we'll give you things that you can listen to so that you don't feel out of your depth at the next event. But whether you do them or not is obviously up to you. So we're going to do that, and we're going to set up a WhatsApp group called Discord, a sort of WhatsApp group called Discord, so we can keep chatting to each other. But that's it. The mythic operating system of the ancient Irish. I will send both of these charts on to you. And for now, we have covered essentially in about 8 minutes the whole of the mythic history, the whole of the history of the Irish in 8 minutes. But I think that's enough for what you need to know. And what we're now at is in the middle of the 19th century, after a very different sort of colonial period of penal laws and Oliver Cromwell. We end up with a culture that was the chosen people who decided the Irish had no value and were papists and were often mocked in popular things like punch and that. We're now at the famine. And this is our backstory. Tom's going to take you through it. You can listen to it again. And it's the start of this Mythic Voices, Mythic Times. So Tom, over to you.